Dan Ives says he's a Tesla Super Bowl on Tom Nash's podcast. He said Elon will turn it around and that this is, can you believe this, a buying opportunity. Take a listen.
He will find a way. He will find a way to turn this around. But now with Twitter, there's a discount to Tesla stock.
Now, he did mean this in a negative way for short-term investors, but I'm a long-term investor, so to me, this is a positive discount. And Dan says he is a Super Bowl of Tesla. This is a pretty good interview. You will want to listen to the whole thing. Let's dive in.
I wanted to really go out there and explain how most institutional investors view it. Now, a lot of times, like retail investors that are so knowledgeable, they'll be like, "No, you're missing the broader picture. What could happen between Twitter and Tesla over the long?" I don't disagree with that. My issue, and I think many others, is like, dude, they're done. In other words, like the frustration, the overhang on Tesla has gotten to a point where frustration's boiled up.
If you are a long-term investor, then all of this is just noise. This doesn't change anything at all, other than present a buying opportunity. It looks not bad at all when you look at the 5-year chart. I know if you look at a 1-year chart, it doesn't look that good, but we are in this for the long term.
I mean, Tom, I've been the biggest Elon supporter and Tesla supporter the last decade. I mean, there's no one that loves Tesla more, believes in the vision more. In my opinion, it's the most disruptive technology stock in the world, over the next 5 to 10 years.
I think even that is going to be quite an understatement when we look at this video back 10 years from now. I believe Tesla will have full self-driving by then, and energy storage, and perhaps as many as 20 million vehicles delivered and produced per year, and the Optimus robot also in development, or perhaps with some functionality already by then. I think Tesla is going to go down as one of the most important companies in all of history.
Musk is viewed so at another level of any other innovator in the world.
Yep, and for a very good reason. It's because Elon Musk is able to do things that governments cannot do, like putting reusable rockets in the space. No government has been able to do that.
Yep. And the problem is, when he starts to come down into the Twitter ecosystem, going back and forth, this, controversial tweet after tweet. Look, he's no longer a user. He owns a platform. So my whole point is, okay, the selling the stock, we get it, right? It's been well talked about in terms of that frustration, and it's still a small amount.
And of course, this tanked the stock badly. That's just $4 billion. Elon has something like $80 billion worth of stock at roughly current prices. Imagine if he sells $40 more billion. Now that's something not to look forward to, but I don't think that's a problem at all, because buybacks will certainly offset whatever amount Elon is going to sell later than he sells in large volume.
I think the bigger worry is like, hey, let social media experts and like your whole network focus on Twitter. Focus back on Tesla. I'm not saying he can't balance. He's balanced SpaceX and Tesla for many years. The problem here is that it's hit a boiling point.
Look, I totally see where Dan is coming from, and he's speaking as an institutional investor, and he's strictly speaking as a Tesla shareholder. He's not speaking as someone who really likes, let's say, Elon Musk on a personal level, and who would understand Elon Musk on a personal level. I think these two things are very different. You see, I understand Elon is going to do his thing. And unfortunately, If you are not okay with that, well, then who do you want to run Tesla? Who would be better than Elon? I don't think, there are some good candidates potentially, but I don't think any of them would be as good as Elon, even if Elon is running two major other companies, SpaceX and Twitter, and then there are other ones like Neuralink, and there's Boring, a company with tunnels. Purely just as a Tesla stock investor, yeah, of course I would want all of Elon's time to be spent on Tesla. That would be the ideal case. But he's like the Albert Einstein of our day. He will just do whatever he wants, or otherwise, you just don't have him work as CEO. I mean, he doesn't even want to be the CEO, guys. He's doing it because he thinks this is the right thing to do, basically.
Where especially coming out of like a very good 3Q relative to what's happened in the industry, but still missed the delivery number, had to lower it. You're starting to see a little bloom come off the rose in terms of institutional investors. You don't need another stumble. And then the perception is if there's another stumble, because of Twitter.
If you are not prepared for a lot of stumbling, I have bad news for you. Here's just one investigation. Here's two more announced just like a day between each other. These are two separate investigations, by the way. One is a criminal one. Ooh, scary. Prison. Here's another one. A senator calling for investigation into Twitter. A senator. And if that was not enough, here's a $50 billion trial that Elon is going through just right now. There's going to be no end for this. Well, eventually it's going to mostly settle down. But this is the new normal, really. But I think that sometime before 2030, this is going to all calm down, cool down, slow down, settle down. But if you are a short-term Tesla stock investor, then it's going to be scary, I think.
You cannot ignore overhangs that are created because they're real. Tom, at the end of the day, that's the fundamental thing is that these are real overhangs, and it's trying to basically be like, and look, we're still buy rated 250 price that we took it off. The reason we took it also off top picks list is like, top picks is like, could something in the near term significantly outperform? If I believe that there's a significant overhang that started to get worse, I think that, that's ultimately, that was the trigger there in terms of why we took it off.
When I really think about it, that overhang is about as legitimate as these investigations into full self-driving. I mean, clearly it is beta, and that overhang is about as legitimate as this trial. Can you believe that this is the amount of paperwork that goes into this sham trial? Someone who has just 9 Tesla shares is doing this to Elon Musk. So yes, the problem is here. It is in our way, but it's just a matter of time, I believe, until all of this goes away. Until this trial goes away, until this overhang goes away. I really think it's just a matter of time. I don't think it's going to be very fast though, but I believe it will go away. And even if it doesn't, Tesla has such strong fundamentals that I believe Tesla stock will be so fine long term. In fact, I believe it will 10x before the end of 2030, at least.
But in terms of reaction stuff, and people will take like, a bull turning bearish. It's not a bull turning bearish. It's a super bull just being like, hey, there's a line in the sand. This needs to end. Otherwise, this is what could happen.
Tesla stock will 10x is what I believe will happen to Tesla stock long term, because I'm a long-term investor. But if you are a short-term investor, of course, I see the pain.
The key man risk. It's just too much of it with Tesla.
It's never been an issue because that's the biggest asset is Musk. But now with Twitter, there's a discount to Tesla stock.
I think everyone is making everything very complicated. This talk about institutional investors and Twitter overhang, this is what we are doing. This is what I like to do. I look at Tesla and I think it's actually really simple. You see, when I look at the chart of Tesla, I see a discount. If you don't see it, it's because you are not looking at the 5-year chart. If you look at the 5-year chart, it's obvious.
That started to be reflected, because if you said to me right now, Tesla $200 a share, you're like, what's Musk worth, like per share? I'd say of any company in the market, he as a percent of the stock is like exorbitantly more than anyone
No
else.
CEO founder is anywhere near him.
100% true. Maybe Steve Jobs would be another person who I was relatively, sort of, maybe you could compare, but still not even close.
You're right. It's getting so much overlooked now because of the drama that is Twitter.
And then
although
that goes to, and Tom, one thing, that perception's reality.
Yeah, but I personally think he'll turn Twitter around. I can already see it happening. I mean, I'm very active on Twitter. You are active on Twitter. I can see a different vibe on Twitter than before. This like FTX collapse drama, the way it's been covered on Twitter more than anywhere else.
Interestingly, I am finding myself using Twitter more now. Is it the same for you as well? And it also seems that on Twitter, no one is like holding anything back. On YouTube and other platforms, it feels like people are often holding back. They are watching what they are saying, and for good reason, because if you say the wrong thing, you will be demonetized, shadow banned, or even worse, whole channel suspended.
That's kind of a post-Elon non-moderated environment.
But
which
Tom, the
we didn't have
biggest, because
before.
remember, I covered Twitter as a public company. The biggest problem with Twitter, no one disputes how much is on. We're all on Twitter.
Yeah.
How do you monetize it? How do you get
Yeah.
advertised on it?
Yeah.
And how do you balance content moderation
Yeah.
with advertisers?
Yeah.
Those are the Rubik's Cubes.
It's actually really simple. You see, I spend money on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram, and I put money and I generated millions of dollars from those platforms. I have never heard anyone, and definitely none of my friends, who ever said, oh, I put 500,000 into Twitter ads and I got 2 million out. You never hear that story. It's happening now with TikTok. But Twitter's ad platform, it is absolutely terrible. So if you can fix a platform so that if you can run a direct response and then you can actually make sales from that because the ad platform is not completely broken, then you will have advertisers. Even if you don't have a big brand, small companies will flock. People that advertise, they just want to make money. You fix that and they will flood in. So you also need a lot of traffic. For example, YouTube actually is great for advertising. You can target people relatively well, and it's kind of easy to do that in relatively speaking. So for Twitter, just do the same. Enable long-form video content, and then pay creators that will create great content, and you will have people flocking in, and then advertisers flocking in as well.
But if I told you 10 years ago or 15 years ago, you could be making money off of rockets, privatizing NASA and electric cars, you would have been very, like anybody, I would have been very skeptical. I mean,
He will find a way. He will find a way to turn this around.
Eventually, that is, yes, absolutely. Elon will eventually turn it around. It's just a matter of time. And before that happens, it's going to be painful for us Tesla stock investors. Unless you are excited about buying opportunities. Here's what Dan thinks has to happen for institutional investors to start taking Tesla really seriously and invest a lot of money.
One, you got to show the path, and we could argue price points, to 2 million units in 2023. Because when you start to get toward 2 million units, the scale of the story starts to change dramatically.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's one. And I'm not saying if it's 2.1, 1.9, but I'm just trying generally, like in
The
terms of
neighborhood.
that neighborhood.
That just sounds like another catalyst that is inevitably going to happen.
2, battery technology. Show me innovations that now are further and further separating Tesla from everyone else, and that's going to give them more of a leg on margins and overall of a moat and financial performance in what's now starting to be like a legit EV arms race. That's 2.
Hopefully we can get those 4680 batteries quickly scaled up.
And 3, like, do a buyback.
Mm-hmm.
Because it goes back to the whole, like,
Yep.
show me that you believe. Like, all I have to do is, like, you're selling stock, this. I'm defending, I'm just walking
Yeah,
as
walk
an
the walk.
institutional
Walk the
investor.
walk.
Walk the
Show
walk.
us. Yeah.
Don't talk to walk the walk.
Yeah.
A buyback will inevitably happen. When is another question, but it will happen. It's just a matter of time at this point. This is Tesla's earnings report, and look at all this cash right here, $21 billion. Remember, this is end of Q3. Q4, how much cash do you think Tesla will have then? And how much cash do you think it will generate next year? And then a year after that? And then a year after that? Do you think Tesla is going to keep $100 billion of cash on hand? I don't think that's productive at all. That cash has to go somewhere. And there are only so many gigafactories that you can build. Eventually, Tesla will do buybacks. Hence, the discount.
And the other thing that I view is, like, from an institutional perspective, is like the technology days and the innovation days are great. Awesome. They're huge parts of the longer term Tesla story. I do think sometimes from an investor perspective, they're not phenomenally timed. They sometimes, like, they put too much, like, stuff out there where then, like, the haters and the shorts be like, oh, you said you were going to do this and now it's 2 years later and we're not there. So also I think, like, putting timelines on things
Mm-hmm.
is a negative. It's like you could talk about things, but when you start to put timelines on, like, oh, we should have this over the next year or over the next 18 months, and that puts artificial timelines, which sometimes create overhangs in the story.
Sometimes, Dan and other Wall Street guys and institutional investors, they speak in code. They speak in ways that is difficult to understand. They do things that are difficult to justify when you really think about things in a simple way, like in a way that makes obvious sense, the way it should be really done. You know what I mean? Translation: buying opportunity. And these are 48 reasons why I only own Tesla stock in my stock portfolio. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't yet, and always do that in the beginning of a video. That really helps the YouTube algorithm. And I'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching.